Now then, Smash Bros. MMA here again, week 4 of the blog. Usual suspects, Big Dawg, KDiggy, Jimbo Slice, as per. Gentlemen, are you well this week even? It's not the weekend quite yet.
Beautiful, mate. Feeling good.
Good, thank you. Good.
Very good, very good. We ain't got that much to talk about today, just last week's card. Big pay-per-view event, which I thought was quite a decent card. Got that to talk about, a little bit of news, quick breakdown of this week's arguably underwhelming card, and then a bit of a discussion to wrap the show up. So we'll start off, we'll get straight into it. We'll talk about the results from last week. Let me just get them up in front of me. Bear with me, gentlemen, bear with me. Been a 255 decent card. What did we think of it? KDiggy, did you like the card? Good fights?
I did like the card. Obviously, it's on at stupid o'clock in the morning, being in the UK. At the time, I woke up, I had an epiphany and woke up at 4:48 a.m. and realised, Dad said, all right, I'll check the UFC. And luckily, the co-main event was just about to start, so I watched that. Then I watched the main event, which were two very different fights, but they were
absolutely
very good.
You know, yeah, it's the same over here. I mean, I didn't get up for it. I recorded it. Shout out to the BT Sports putting on for free, and also a big shout out to Chris Davis, first commenter on the blog. Shout out to the man, the myth, Chris Davis. Hit us up again if you watch it again. Don't think you will. I don't think anybody will be watching it. We're down to eight listeners, 8 viewers now. It's getting weak, but yeah, I watched the full card aside from the early fight past prelims because I have stuff to do. I have a life. I don't have time to watch every fight. But I thought it was a good card from top to bottom, to be fair. Some decent fights, some kind of what we expected results. And Jimbo Slice, what did you make of some of the prelim action? We'll get into the main card shortly, but what did you think of Shevchenko's younger sister's fight?
Well, I was just actually about to bring this up just before we started recording. Antonina Shevchenko, I believe isn't she actually the older sister of the?
Is she? Oh no. Fair cop.
Well, she won the fight.
36, bloody hell.
I would say it was the most lackluster ground and pound I've seen in a while. At the time, I thought it's not like devastating, but maybe she is doing a bit of damage here. But then after watching it on the UFC Fight motion that they put on their YouTube, she looks like she's doing a bit of slapping and everything. It seemed like her shouting or kiaing was making the ref think, oh, serious damage is being done here. I'll stop that, and then we'll give her 50 grand that, and then give her a performance of the night that Davidson Figueiredo didn't originally get, which ground my gears. But I believe he's been given the 50 grand now.
Yeah, it was a good performance from her in the fight, but yeah, I think the stoppage was pretty weak. Just hitting her in head and screaming while she's doing it, shouldn't quantify a stoppage. But moving on, from a reasonably weak stoppage to what was pretty chuffing violence, to be fair, with Joaquin Buckley taking out Jordan Wright. Violent finish. I mean, there's an argument being that fight could have finished on the stool. He was pretty much done at the end of the first round. KDiggy, do you think his corner did the right thing letting him come out for the second round?
In hindsight, you have to say no, but these guys are warriors, aren't they? They go out, they prefer to die on the sword. So I don't think Jordan Wright would take anything back, even though it was a nasty KO 18 seconds later.
It were nasty, and with Joaquin Buckley now, making waves, 2 finishes on the bounce in the UFC. James Krause calling him out. Is that a fight that you want to see, Jimbo?
To be honest, I just want to see James Krause fight. I think he's a fantastic fighter and very, very exciting to watch. Got some great grappling, some decent hands. Does have the disadvantage of only fighting, I believe, once at middleweight when he made his debut on 24 hours notice. Oh, yeah. And lost a controversial split decision. That I believe there was talk of do the judges know the other people's fighters and this?
I'm pretty sure that they trained at the same gym or something like that, or the fighter's head coach was a good mate of the judge or something. I can't remember, but yeah, there was some controversy around it, and I remember watching that fight with Krause at middleweight, and to say that he was completely undersized, he gave a good performance, and I think my concern with Buckley is that he's a big boy, he's not. It's not like he's a skinny frame; he is pure muscle, and I think that it'd be a tough fight for Krause, and he should remain at welterweight where he's going to do his best work. And the final fight of the preliminaries, Jimbo Slice's pound for pound pick, losing in the first round. Where's your head at, Jimbo? Talk to me.
To be honest, fair cop to Brandon Moreno. I'm gutted. I'm gutted my boy lost. I'm gutted Brandon Royval lost. First time he's ever been finished, I believe. A horrendous little injury at the end though, when he dislocated and then popped it back in just a few seconds later. It was the finish reminded me of when you're like, right, let's we've seen he's injured. Let's hit him as many times as he can, so while he can't defend himself, because we know in 5 more seconds he will be able to defend himself.
It was quite reminiscent of Aldo Korean Zombie at 163 all those years ago. Dislocated shoulder, going in for the kill whilst he can't stop. And obviously Moreno has got the next fight booked for him for next month, which we'll talk about later when we get into that in the news section. But KDiggy, is the rematch of Moreno Royval a fight that would interest you down the line?
No. Let's move on. The flyweights have got. We was debating last week if Moreno should have been in the title fight. Anyway, he's finished. He's won now, and he's proved to everyone that he deserves that flyweight championship title shot. So I think let's move on from it. See how he does against Figueiredo down the line, and then maybe they come back to it a little bit later.
Yeah, I think the thing for me, it was shaping up to be quite a good fight, and the fans were robbed of what could quite easily have been a fight of the night candidate, which is the biggest travesty of the entire card, to be fair. It was shaping up to be a great fight, but it was the first pick on the verdict, so we'll just quickly get that back up, remind ourselves of what everybody said. I said Moreno victory, albeit by decision. So I got a few points for that, but not the grand amount that I would have done if I'd put the finish. But Jimbo, I take it you picked your boy Royval.
I picked my boy Royval by a third round submission, which I believe I said I can see it going as a beatdown for Moreno. Then Royval hit a nice submission. That didn't happen. It was just a beatdown for Moreno.
How wrong you were, mate.
He said both of them could win.
How wrong you were.
Yeah.
How wrong you were. What shame.
I was made up when I woke up and saw that Moreno won. I was so excited for our next video when I saw it. It was
it's okay. 2 weeks. 2 weeks is Kevin Holland versus Hermanson. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Just wait.
It can go one way or another. It'll either propel him or it'll either just sink the ship. So we'll have to see.
I think the outsider picks in the pound for pound of Frankie Edgar, probably the safest out of the outsiders at the moment. But the Royval pick's dead in the water.
He's still ranked. He's still ranked unlike Kevin Holland.
In one of the worst divisions in the UFC, in the men's UFC.
All 12 fighters. All 12 fighters.
He's 10th.
I believe they've got it back to
15. The next fight kicking off the main card, we had Paul Craig getting a submission victory, a submission to punches over Shogun, who are I'll talk about this one initially. I picked a Shogun decision. I thought last time they thought that he was the better fighter and deserved the nod. So it was a real shame to see Shogun go out in that way, in that form, tapping to punches. And I'll just add, it's not the first time he's done this. He did it against John Jones when he lost the title as well, albeit the referee pulled him off as he was tapping. But I just think it's a real shame to see a warrior go down the way that Shogun has. And for you, KDiggy, where do you want Shogun to go from here?
So prior to the fight, I did have Craig. We did sort of have that disagreement last time that I did think Craig did just pip it. Obviously, ended up being a draw in the end. So I went Craig decision and got the correct fighter. But in regards to Shogun, it sounds like they don't really want him in the UFC anymore. I think he'd be a good fighter for Bellator to go into. I think he could start quite high, work his way up the division, and potentially could make a splash over there. But I don't see it in the UFC anymore. I think Craig's got an exciting few fights ahead of him now after getting rid of Shogun. I'd like to see him against. I'm gonna butcher his name here. Misha Kurakov, who hasn't fought for a year.
Fight. Yeah, that's a great fight. To be fair,
two submission artists going at it. I think it'd be a great one to welcome him back. And
yeah, I think that could be a good fight. Or even is Nikita Krylov booked at the minute? Is he fighting anyone?
I think
I want to say he's fighting Volkan.
He just beat someone. Who did Krylov beat? He beat someone.
I'm a big fan of him.
He beat Johnny Walker.
Yes.
I'd quite like to see him fight Krylov, to be fair. I think that'd be a really good fight. You've got him, number 8 in the division. It's a really good opportunity for him to get up. But what do you think the ceiling is for Craig at the moment, Jimbo? Do you reckon he could be a top contender by the end of 2021?
I don't see that, to be honest, right now in Craig's future. I could be perfectly wrong. The light heavyweight division always.
You were wrong about Royval, weren't you?
He was very wrong.
The light heavyweight division always throws up like spanners in the works. No one would have thought 2 years ago Anthony Smith would be a top contender in the light heavyweight division because he was a middleweight. But I just don't see him being a top guy. I can see him cracking the top 10. Can see him fluctuating a few wins and losses. I want Paul Craig to do well. I'm a bit of a fan, but I just don't see him cracking the Dominic Reyes's, the Jan Blachowicz, the possibly Israel Adesanyas of the world. Don't see him get into the top bit. Hopefully I'm wrong.
The thing for Craig is that on the ground, he's phenomenal. He can, pull a submission out of nowhere, as he did in the Ankalaev fight when they fought, a few years back now. But I just don't think his striking's improved massively. I'm not gonna sit in and berate him for his capability in the stand-up. It has improved massively, but I still think there's quite a few holes in the game that needs to be improved for him to get to that next level. But yeah, I'm pretty gutted that Shogun lost in the manner that he did. A real shame for him moving forward. And, like you were saying, KDiggy, it's looking like his days in the UFC could be very much numbered. Now, the next fight, we had, arguably the gatekeeper at the top of the women's flyweight division, Caitlin Chikagan, taking on Cynthia Calvillo and managing to, win quite a comfortable unanimous decision through the fight. Played out pretty much exactly as myself and KDiggy predicted it would. Staying at range, getting that jab, working beautifully on the outside and just keeping it standing and working that way. Do you think Chikagan deserves another title shot if you can get another win under her belt, KDiggy?
Yeah, it depends. It depends who she fights. I'd put her in there against lucky Lauren Murphy. It would be a rematch that she won back in 2016. But I'm still as happy as I am that she did win this fight, and it was a toss-up for me. I was umming and ahhing all week about it, as me and Jimbo have discussed, and I ended up just leaning towards Caitlin. Yeah. But if she can, I think she needs 2 more fights in her now. I think just with how disappointing it was against Andrade, she'll need to put in a couple more big performances to show that she's improved and she's ready for that next level, and then get her in.
I think that's more than fair. And Jimbo, you picked Calvillo in this fight, and I think the main issue for her was the size discrepancy. What do you think she needs to do, to be a force in this flyweight division and to, to hang up there with the top players when she has given up size to a lot of them?
I think she needs to learn what Tim Means showed off beautifully in the next fight. I think she needs to learn that jab. I think she needs to learn how to deal with the jab and how to jab herself. Make herself more of a threat on the feet so people are less worried about her takedowns. Because all Caitlin needs to do, I keep her at range. I know if I've got her at range, I'm the better fighter. She can't shoot from that range on me. I'm much longer than her. And I have no issues taking this fight to the feet because I know I'll win. I think she needs to take more care in her striking and learn from this fight. Use it as a building block and take some pride in your hands and learn how to be a threat with them as well as on the ground.
I mean, to be fair, she started training at AKA this year, which could really fill that void, and it might be that she's contemplating that herself already, Jimbo. So we'll have to wait and see what the future holds. But she's only lost twice. She's lost to, oh God, what's she?
Carla Esparza.
Carla Esparza, that's the one. And Caitlin now, so she's not losing to anyone that of a lower quality. Carla Esparza, one of the top players, perennial contenders down at strawweight. Chukagian, the same at flyweight. So she's only losing to the big girls of the divisions. I think what you're saying there, Jimbo, I completely agree. If she can hone that striking in, learn to use effective jabs, things like that. The only issue she's got is still going to be her size. But if she can diversify her striking under, a general output in the fights, I think she can, hang up there at the top of the division. The next fight, welterweight, we had Mike Perry losing to Tim Means. Jimbo, I'll come to you first. Is this the end of the road for Mike Perry in the UFC?
I think the whole fight week situation might mean it is. The eating pizza, the showing off that I'm eating pizza, being irresponsible in a way of turning up not with a trained professional in your corner. You're putting your own health at risk. You're putting the opponent at risk by having someone in there who's not there to who's just it's your girlfriend and your friend. It's not someone who's trained to be in that corner. You're putting yourself, you're putting your opponent, you're putting everyone at risk by not having someone in the corner, missing weight by so much, and losing such a convincing fight to Tim Means. Tim Means realised, right, okay, this man is supposedly a striker, but I can outstrike him. I can use my jab effectively. And I will do it. And I think there's a tale of two halves of the fight as well, when Mike Perry's just swinging for the fences, trying to knock him out in the first half. And in the second half, what I remember, Mike's trying to jab back, and it looks horrendous. And he's just knackered and he can't do it anymore. There was that time when Mike Perry looked promising when he was just before the Cowboy fight, and he was training Jackson Wink, I believe. And then he thought, well, let's throw all this away. Let's earn a bit less money, so I'm in a different tax bracket, and I end up earning more. He's a man unto himself, and I feel like he might be Bellator bound. He might be Lorenz Larkins, but Lorenz Larkins is a much better fighter, much more complete fighter.
And you've touched upon his lack of a prominent and proficient corner. So I'll ask you, KDiggy, would Darren Till being in the corner of Mike Perry being the difference in this fight?
No, definitely not. Nothing would have changed. But with what Mike Perry is even Dana says he does push the needle a little bit. He does get.
He does.
He gets people invested. He gets people entertained. Like just by how much you guys know about him, he's well known in the MMA circuit. So I don't think he's going to be pushed out that quickly. I think it's going to take a few more embarrassments for him to be kicked out. Personally, I had a quick look around and had a quick think, and I think a great fight for Mike Perry would be the winner of Michelle Pereira versus Chaos Williams, and it just being an absolute barn burner. I think it'd
have the potential to be a wild fight, wouldn't
it? It would move up if Michelle Pereira wins or Chaos Williams wins. It'll do them a world of good. And if Perry loses, it could potentially be goodbye time after that. After building up a great fight.
I agree. Sorry, I'll let you go first.
No, yeah. I would just say I agree with you, KDiggy, to be fair, about Perry. He is one that the fans know, and to a point the fans love. His rivalry with Till is ridiculous, but it's a good laugh. And that, I think, a good laugh personifies a lot about Mike Perry, aside from the fact he allegedly battered his ex-missus. he's fun to watch. You know, he's got a fun personality. He comes out there and he's a bit of a, you know, sometimes you've got to question, are you laughing with him or are you laughing at him? But whilst he still has that appeal to the mainstream, you know, to the fans, I think he'll remain in the UFC for that time. And I could that you know, Michelle Pereira, Chaos Williams winner against Perry is tantalising to say the least. KDiggy and Jimbo, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I had two things. The first thing, I was got a bit worried when he said Michelle. I was thinking, is he going to say the winner of Michelle Watson and Amanda Rivas? But he didn't, which was good. And I think it's quite interesting. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I think the interesting thing you say about moves the needle. Mike Perry's third from the top here, and a man who has previously beaten Mike Perry is the early prelims headliner. And you're right, he does move the needle with Alan Yaban beating Mike Perry earlier. I think you're very right. He does show, he does move the needle that people are invested, people are interested. But yeah, that's just what I want to. I just think it's quite interesting when there's fights like that. A man who's really not improved much since that loss is still very highly positioned on the card.
And it's pretty crazy as well that we've spoke about just Mike Perry for 5 minutes when it was actually Tim Means that won the fight.
Yeah. So what's next for Tim Means, KDiggy? What's next for Tim Means?
I had a quick look for around as well, and had a think about it, and I think a downward sloping Robbie Lawler would make sense. I think he's lost his last 4.
Yeah, that's a good fight. It's a fight I'd watch.
It's pretty sad, but I think it would be probably the bottom of the main card, but it could do quite well as a decent little fight.
I think that's a pretty decent fight, to be fair, and I'll give you that one. I mean, the only one that I was contemplating was possibly Carlos Condit, should he get past Matt Brown when they fight next year. I think that would be a good fight as well for him, but I'm pretty sure he's fought Matt Brown, albeit quite a few years ago now, and with Brown beating him. But from what I remember, it was a pretty good fight, so I wouldn't even mind seeing a rematch of that, to be fair, if the winner of that fight was even going to continue. Jimbo Slice, which fight would interest you next for Tim Means?
I was actually just going to say the exact same thing as you with Carlos Condit, but there's a few options out there. People just ranked below the top 15 that I think there's a few options. But yeah, I was hoping you weren't going to say the Carlos Condit fight, but turns out you did.
Great minds, Jimbo. Great minds. I think there's a lot of options to Tim Means. You know, he's one of these fighters that's kind of been on the fringe of the top 15 for, you know, a number of years now. He seems to kind of get a decent win under his belt, and then from there lose, and he just seems to flip-flop. If he could get a bit of consistency behind his belt, you know, there's a lot of good fights for him out there. And, you know, speaking of good fights, you know, for fighters, we'll go to the, you know, what was arguably the polar opposite now on Valentina Shevchenko's title reign at the flyweight division. You know, a relatively pedestrian performance against Maya. For me, it was a fight that I think she could have won at any point if she wanted to. She didn't really seem to want to go out there and put a superlative performance on, you know, get that finish. But who is there left for her to fight KDiggy at flyweight?
There aren't that many, are there? I think it's tough. I think it is. I think Maya, she looked okay for the first couple of rounds. She looked strong. She looked like she could hold up Valentina. I was bigging up Valentina in our last podcast, saying she'll beat her however she wants to. And in the end, it was convincing, but it wasn't Valentina Shevchenko convincing. And
it was quite reminiscent of a title defense against Liz Carmouche last year. Just kind of very relaxed, not really going out there to put an exclamation mark on it. I think it's a shame because, you know, people talk about it as being one of these fighters that's one of the best. And when you put performances on that, like that on, yeah, it's dominant, it's impressive, but it's not, you know, it's not sparking the imagination, the excitement within the fans outside of, you know, the kind of inner circles. for me. Sorry, KDiggy, I interrupted you there.
No, it's okay. I'd say as well that she could go down to the strawweights and fight, but I think it's the
It's a
strawweights.
tough cut for her.
It is, or maybe one or Whaley goes up, but I think the strawweights is such an exciting division anyway. I don't think there's any need to sort of move around it. I just feel like it is just a shame in that women's flyweight division that we're just going to have to sort of build another fighter up to try and take on the Bowser at the end.
And I think for me, we've asked KDiggy who could be next for it, and I'll ask you, Jimbo Slice. Is there anybody in that top 15 at the minute that is a credible threat to Valentina Shevchenko's title reign?
I think your most credible threat is the woman who's had one fight at flyweight, and I think that's Jessica Andrade, who is at least a former champion. I think if Calvillo had beaten Chukagian, she'd have got the next shot. The UFC seems to quite like Calvillo. I think Jessica Andrade, though, is the dream fight for Valentina Shevchenko. She's fighting someone who's aggressive, and Valentina's an excellent counterpuncher. She'll just stand back and just tag her all day and then finish her. But Jessica Andrade is a big, strong girl who might just hold her, slam her, beat her up.
I mean, I'm just having a quick...
It's most likely a Valentina win.
And I'm just having a quick nosy at the rankings now whilst you're talking, Jimbo. And Andrade, to be fair to her, after that win against Chukagian last month, she is ranked number 1. So that's more than likely is got to be the next fight, hasn't it? And, I agree with you. I think we're going to have a brawler counter-striker matchup, and it's just going to be a question of who can impose their game and their will first. Could be a good fight.
That one for me, I think. I always think that she's so small, Andrade, that she's not going to be fighting any at flyweight. But of course, she can't believe she beat Caitlin, didn't she? Chukagian.
Yeah. And we'll go from a relatively pedestrian performance to a rapid finish in the main event with Deiveson Figueiredo getting that first round sub over Alex Perez. I called a second round submission. I said he were going to get him in a guillotine last week. If any of our 2 listeners can recall me saying that, I reckon it'd be a submission, and I was right. I just got my round wrong. We'll gloss over this fight because we're going to be talking about it imminently in a second, because it was a very quick turnaround for the boy Fig taking on Brandon Moreno at next month's pay-per-view. We'll just kind of link this all in together, but I will make reference again to Jimbo Slice's horrendous predictions this week, getting this one wrong, picking Perez by a 4th round knockout. And all I'll ask is, what was going through your head?
What was going through my head was Deiveson Figueiredo is still relatively unknown, and after rewatching a lot of recently this week, I've rewatched a lot of Deiveson Figueiredo's early UFC fights. I sit there and I think, I can see a man here who would have been, who was sloppy and he's very, very talented, but you could have seen Perez beating that man. But I genuinely forgot that he seemed to put it all together in both Benavidez's fights, have the confidence, and just go out there and win. To be honest, shocking pick. After watching it again, after watching that fight, I've probably watched it 5 or 6 times because it's so quick, this one. I'm not picking against Figueiredo again soon, but I'm just worried about his cardio in this next fight that he's going to face against Brandon Moreno. Is he going to be compromised? It's a very tough cut for him anyway. I think Joe Rogan was saying he weighs about 150 pounds in there. He went in on fight day, which is huge that's bigger than a featherweight, like when they cut. And Moreno probably a lot more easy cut for him, and I think Moreno, it might be, it's a big favour for Moreno, I think, than this quick turnaround over Figueiredo.
Sorry, that was going to be that one. Yeah, you've fucking taken the entire topic, dickhead. My next question was going to be to you, KDiggy. Do you reckon that the tough cut that Fig makes, and making it on what's going to be in essence 3 weeks' notice, is that going to compromise his performance against Moreno next week? Well, not next week when they fight.
I think potentially, but I think he's going to get the best. He'll get the best best recovery that he can get possible. With Dana keeping him in Las Vegas, he'll have access to all of everything that he can get to get that recovery, to get everything he can. Dana will feed him. He'll make sure he's nice and sweet with a nice bow on top, to win the fight at the end of the in a couple of weeks. Yeah. So I think I don't think there's any particular worries about that for myself. I think Uncle Dana will make sure he's okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great fight. The only thing that upsets me about the booking is that, it's on such short notice, and it's a fight that I'd like to see them both with a full camp for, because I think it's got potential to be fireworks and one of the best fights, that the division has to offer. And I think, talking about the flyweight division as a whole, and, Big Fig himself, Jimbo, do you think that, this kind of polar opposite to Demetrius Johnson that we had, DJ, very calculated, strong fighter, dominant performances. We've got Fig coming out who's just starching people in first round, constantly looking for that finish. Do you think that Big Fig being the champion of the flyweight is going to spark a bit more interest in the lower weight classes?
Well, I think it might do. I think because he's so different to everyone else in that division.
Yeah.
He immediately draws interest. I also think in being from Brazil might help attract that market even more. At the moment, are there any other Brazilian champions? I can't think any off the top of my head.
You've got Nunez. No, I think that's it, to be fair, in the men's side.
On Figueiredo's Facebook page and Instagram page, there's comment after comment from Brazilians. So I feel like he might attract and bring that market back in there. Who, if he's dominant like to the level of Jose Aldo, he might be able to at some point have a bit more mainstream attention. Not mega, but I feel like he might bring it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this quick turnaround, if he can secure the dub against Moreno, it sets up my prediction for him being that dual champion. He'll have the Cody fight early next year, and once he's done that, he's kind of cleared the division out. Pretty much sets him up to fight either Aljo or Peter Yan when that fight takes place. So I think my pound for pound pick of him being a double champion is pretty safe at the moment, if I'm being quite honest with you. And just a little bit of news before we get into this card that's coming up at the weekend. Last week we were talking about Anderson Silva, being pretty much released from the UFC and looking for options elsewhere. Since this recording last week, Bellator said they're not interested, PFL said they're not interested, even bare knuckle boxing have come out and said they don't want him. So what are the options left available to the Spider, KDiggy?
I think as I mentioned last week, I think he's a great ambassador for the sport, and I think if he makes one more wrong move now by turning into a BJ Penn, I think it could all go down the drain. I think he does some great work in Brazil. I think he can continue to do that. I think he could do some work with the UFC, and I think that's his best avenue at the moment. Just don't go ruining it now. Just take what you've got.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, when you think about other organisations that are likely to take him on and can afford him, the only one that really comes to mind now is Rizin, who haven't said no yet. So we might get some bizarre Japanese fights down the line, but I hope we don't. I hope he's done. Jimbo Slice, do you have anything other to add? Do you want him to retire?
Well, yeah. I know that's a really sad thing to say. You never usually want to say, yeah, I want them to retire. But such a sad end for a man that in 2012, 2013 will say is the greatest of all time. And genuinely, at that time, there was only GSP who was probably comparable and say that to. A man who is 1-7 with 1 no contest since that time, arguably should be 0-8 1 no contest. Because I believe from what I remember, his win over Brunson was incredibly controversial. I just want him to take some time, enjoy his life, and don't take any more of those strange Viagra he's been taking.
Yeah, that'd help him, wouldn't it? To be fair, that'd be a great help. Right. So we've got another card, a fight night card this weekend. No numbered event, no pay-per-view. Some pretty good fights at the top. We got a decent main and co-main event. We've got Curtis Blaydes taking on Derek Lewis. We've got Anthony Smith on Devin Clark. Just having a quick look at the card now. Some okay fights on it, to spark that interest. Looking at the preliminary card, we've got Luke Sanders returning at catchweight, £140. Last fight against Henan Barrow, where he finished him. Via a TKO, so it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens there. We've got a women's flyweight fight with Gina Mazzani taking on the lovely Rachel Ostovich, which I'll be sure to tune in for. So we've got those fights there happening on the preliminary card, and we'll just talk about the verdict picks, which predominantly is the main card off the top of my head. I'll just get the card back up in front of me now. I've put my picks in. So the first fight on the main card and on the verdict, we've got Spike Carlisle taking on Bill Algeo. KDiggy, what's your prediction? Talk to me.
So I've done a bit of my research here. We've got Spike, who's a big favourite on verdict. Everyone, it looks like Swing is pushing for Spike to win. The bookies are doing the same thing as well, 8-13. But I'm going for Bill Algeo. He's been in there with some decent competition with Ricardo Lamas, even though he lost, and Brendan Luthney. And I think sort of having that experience of fighting these sort of known names will give him that push to win. I've gone Algeo by decision.
Yeah, and I'll talk about my pick next. I've gone for the same pick, an Algeo decision. For me, recency bias. I remember Spike Carlisle's last fight where he lost a pretty resounding decision in his last fight, and that sticks true to me against a fighter that isn't really one of these big boys that Algeo's had that exposure to in the form of Ricardo Lamas. So I just think that having that exposure to the bigger fights, the bigger game, so to speak, is going to give Bill that edge here, and he'll manage to do enough to get a victory over Spike in this fight. Jimbo, do you agree?
Well, I agree with everything you're saying about Bill Algeo. He's got bigger names, big that's that and the other. But I've gone with Spike Carlisle, and the reason I've gone with him is because he looks like Sheamus from the WWE. That's basically the reason I've gone with him. So I've gone, and I know he did have a very lackluster performance in his last fight, which was this year, wasn't it? I believe it was early this year.
Yeah.
But I've gone with Spike Carlisle by second round knockout, hopefully via a brogue kick, so he can live up to the Sheamus aspects.
It's going to be a big old kick to the head. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So the next fight we've got, it's a bit of a dark horse pick. To be fair, this fight's quite a good fight, for the hardcore. Some decent fighters coming. So we've got Miguel Beza, coming fresh off his win against Matt Brown earlier on, and coming up against Takashi Sato, last one against Jason Witt in June of this year. Probably most well known in the UFC for TKO and Ben Saunders back in 2019. We'll stay with you, Jimbo Slice. What's your pick here?
I've gone for a Sato, and I've gone for a Sato knockout. As you said, it's a dark horse for a really good scrap. I've gone for a knockout in the second round. I thought I'd gone for a knockout in the first round, but I've gone for a knockout in the second round, and I'm sticking to my guns there. I think it's just going to be an excellent scrap, and from what I remember, he's got some decent hands on him. So I'm hoping for a naughty knockout, a clean knockout, not a TKO. Big
pick. KDiggy, do you agree that Sato's going to get his hand raised in this one?
I don't know. I think most of the people are going with Sato. I think the verdict people are, but actually the bookies are putting Sato as a little bit of the underdog. I'm personally going with Beza. I think he's got the height. He's still got that 0, which he's fighting for. With that win over Matt Brown as well, who who's obviously had an illustrious career. I think Blaydes is going in there with a lot of confidence, and this one it could go either way, but I've gone Blaydes decision.
That's an interesting pick. So I've been looking at both of them, and when you consider Sato, beating Ben Saunders, it's not a name that carries a lot of weight. Pretty much anyone with any quality behind them in the welterweight division has beat Ben Saunders. But when you consider Matt Brown, a perennial gatekeeper in the division, and Blaydes, for his 9th professional fight, managing to get that win over him, with a finish in the second round with a knockout. I feel that the pedigree on the side of Blaydes is there. It's stronger. Sato's lost in the UFC, lost to Bilal Muhammad back at 242. I think, over a year ago now. But for me, I think Blaydes has got the better pedigree. He's got the better wins. And I think it's going to be a knockout in the first round. I don't think he's going to be playing about here. So we're leaving out Almir Albazi against Zhalgas Zhumagulov because the fight has been postponed. It's been moved due to visa issues. So that fight isn't going to be taking place on the card. So we'll move on to Josh Parisian against Parker Porter. So Josh Parisian coming fresh off Dana White Contender Series. Dana has got a tendency to get these boys, the Tuesday night winners, in favourable matchups, get them in there, get some strong performances out there. And I think that's what this fight is against Porter. I think it's going to be a quick knockout in the first round for Parisian. He's going to go out there, he's going to put on a statement performance, possibly even get a performance of the night from it. Jimbo Slice, what is your pick?
I 100% agree with everything. It wasn't long ago he was on the Contender Series. I believe he won his last fight, first round TKO. And I think history's going to repeat himself. I think he's going to go out there, heavyweights, they hit hard. He hits hard for a heavyweight, fight's over.
It's as simple as it gets, really. KDiggy, is it a sweep for Parisian?
Well, we've got Parker Porter, who actually fought John Jones when John Jones was 4-0, and he got knocked out, I believe, in 36 seconds. So he's obviously been in there with the best, but with him being the biggest underdog on the card, and that's for a reason, and that's because Parisian is a contender, and he could potentially be making his way up the heavyweight division here. The heavyweight division. So I'm going to hope that Parker Porter can survive that first round and then leave his chin exposed in the second round and hit the canvas. Second round knockout for Parisian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back on Parisian now because I'm sat there thinking, I'm sure I've seen this geezer fight before. And he has, he's been on Contender Series this year, and then he was also on it back in 2018. And I remembered him from the Ultimate Fighter 28 when he lost in I think an opening round fight against Michel Batista, who I think got to the semi-finals and got knocked out. So he's potentially got that weakness against wrestlers. But we'll see what happens. I think that he's given him a favourable fight here, and we'll have to see what happens with him. For this one. The next fight we've got on the card, co-main event, Anthony Smith returning, trying to make sure that it's not 3 straight losses in his fight against Devin Clark. Before we get into the predictions here, we'll just quickly touch on Anthony Smith. And Jimbo, is Anthony Smith back against the wall? If he doesn't win in this fight, what do you think happens?
If he doesn't win in this fight, he's losing that number next to his name, in my opinion. He's losing it. It feels like maybe he caught fire and he got that title shot really over a victory or over people who weren't really in their prime. When I think about it, he beat Hua. From what I remember, it was a great performance.
Yeah, it was about 70. It was like a standing knockout, wasn't it, against the cage? It was actually, I just watched that finish before. We've filmed this now. Beautiful finish.
But it feels like as well, ever since he fought Jones, he's frozen. I know he fought Gustafsson and he beat Gustafsson, but yet again, he's been a past prime Gustafsson. It feels like maybe he was fighting 2 highly ranked people after since his fight. He beat Ozdemir, who which, to be fair, very good fight. But Ozdemir was very highly ranked for where he was at the time. Ozdemir is great on the feet, doesn't have great ground game. That was exploited. But don't get me wrong. I could be proved completely wrong, and he goes out there and destroys Devin Clark. I haven't made I've literally actually just changed my prediction on the while on the podcast for this fight. So I'll let you know that in a minute.
Oh.
Well, we'll ask you now. From what you're saying there, Jimbo, it sounds like you don't really like Anthony Smith. So I'm going to take a punt that you have picked Devin Clark to win this fight.
I actually changed it from Devin Clark. I had a Devin Clark decision victory, and then I was sat there thinking, I was like, "Who's Devin Clark lost to? He's lost Alexander Rakic,
Yep.
TKO, Ryan Spann submission with a guillotine." Yeah. I can't remember who else, but the one that sticks in my mind,
it's your boy,
is the Jan Blachowicz standing rear naked choke.
Yeah.
Now, if he can be submitted by those two people, he's going to be submitted by Anthony Smith.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like is going to happen. And I've gone for a second round submission. I think...
Snap.
I think if it goes...
Snap.
Snap.
I do actually feel like if it goes to decision, Devin's got this. I think he's got this. But I often sit there and think about Jan Blahovich's amazing standing rear naked choke on him.
It's a beautiful submission.
If he can get that, so can Anthony Smith. So I've gone for a second round.
I also have gone for a second round submission from Anthony Smith. I agree with a lot of what you're saying about Smith. Possibly was his title fight justified against John Jones? And to be fair to him, at that stage, there wasn't really anybody else available to fight John Jones. But I think this fight is going to remind everybody why Anthony Smith is, in that rankings, in the position that he has been in, last year and this year in the division, in the rankings. And I think it's going to be a second round sub because Devin Clark has proven that he can be submitted by fighters who it's not their forte, it's not their main area. So snap submission round 2, Smith. KDiggy.
I can't believe it. I thought that mine was a special pick which no one else would choose. But yeah, I've gone the same way. When Devin Clark's lost by submission, he's lost in the second round to Jan and Ryan. But that Anthony Smith is the legend killer. He is the Randy Orton of the UFC.
It's an MMA blog podcast. We're not talking about WWE here.
So I think Anthony Smith he's talked about how he's had a rough year. He had his house burgled and I'm sure he has been through a few things here, and I think the Lionheart will prevail, and I think that submission I might have to change it because I don't want to be having the same as you boys.
Oh, you've said it now. You've already
said it.
We've got great minds. It's locked in, and we've got the main event now. Curtis Blaydes, perennial contender towards the top of the division against another, big boy in the division, Derek Lewis. Main event, 5 rounds. A lot could happen in this fight. He's heavyweight. When Derek Lewis turns up, it's always unpredictable. But we'll stick with you, KDiggy, for now. What is your thoughts on how this fight plays out?
I'm hoping. Well, I've never really seen a very, very exciting Curtis Blaydes fight. I love the way he fights. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a machine and he gets the job done. But I'm not expecting too many fireworks from this one, which might be quite negative. But I think that's just how I see it. I just see these big boys here. I see Curtis jumping on him, preying on Derek, and Derek getting up for the first couple of rounds, but then getting too tired by the third, taking those mean elbows and winning, and Curtis Blaydes winning by TKO in the third round.
Jimbo Slice, do you yourself see a Curtis Blaydes takedown special in this fight?
I see this fight as the battle of who's got the better cardio. And we know neither has brilliant cardio, but I have seen Curtis Blaydes go 5 rounds recently, and he was so gassed by the end. But he's done it. I can't think of a time when Derek Lewis has made the 5 rounds. Now, I see this going one of two ways. I see the big punch connecting, or I see Blaydes falling, or I see a repeat of Curtis Blaydes versus Overeem. They're taking down big elbows from the top. 3rd round technical knockout.
That's fair. So you're both going with the 3rd round. It's going to be a sweep for Blaydes, and it isn't for me. I think it's going to be a Lewis victory. I agree with everything that you're all saying. I do. The thing for me, when you think about Derek Lewis's fights, when he's fought wrestlers, aside from, Daniel Cormier, when they had that title fight back at UFC 230, where he just controlled him on the ground and got that 2nd round sub, he's always been one of these fighters that is able to get up. When he fought Shamil, I'm not even going to attempt to butcher his last name. They fought back in 2016. Very similar fight, kept getting taken down. Eventually, as the fight progressed, as Shamil got tired, Lewis was able to take over and secure that. I think it was a 4th round TKO. I think it's going to play out similarly to that. I think Blaydes is not a threat on the feet. He's a decent striker, but he's not, to the quality and capacity of, fighters like JDS that Lewis has fought, Mark Hunt back in the day. I don't feel that he's at that level of caliber, so I don't think that he's going to be able to finish him on the feet. I think he's going to get him down to the 1st round. I think it's going to be ugly for Lewis. He's going to be in trouble on several different occasions, but I think in that 2nd round, we're going to get an early 2nd round knockout on the feet for Lewis. I think his power is going to be too much for Blaydes, and he's going to fall.
I just want to counter something you quickly said. I agree. Curtis Blaydes does not have brilliant hands, but out of the 2, who knocked out JDS on the feet?
Sure. But, this is a JDS that, the fair cop to Blaydes, he beat him. This is a JDS of, new. It's not the JDS that won the title that, knocked out Cain Velasquez in 64 seconds and went on an absolute tear in the early teens. This is the JDS of 2020, and you can't compare that to who.
Wasn't it the JDS of 2019 who fought Derek Lewis?
A year before, though, before he got knocked out by Francis Ngannou. A lot. I'll give you that. But I think, but even then, he's not of that caliber. He's not of that quality on the feet.
Completely
he's not
agree.
one of the elite strikers of the division. And I think that he's going to get tired, even if it's not. I've gone for the 2nd round. It could be a 3rd. It could be a 4th. Hell, it could even be a 5th. But I think Lewis is getting the knockout as Blaydes fatigues and gets tired as the fight goes on. So that's the picks. It's going to be interesting to see who comes top, for next PM points. But some very interesting fights on the card. Not the best for name value, but I think there's some decent fights, and I'll certainly be tuning in over the weekend to watch it.
Yeah, the double champ is here anyway, and he's looking to 3-peat, as the famous Michael Jordan did twice. So we'll
the KDiggy dynasty.
Have to get the 2 belts. Oh, this looks good, baby. So yeah, well, we've all pretty much got very similar picks, haven't we? I think a lot of it will come down to the start of the card, which is quite interesting, because obviously we've all got the same pick for the co-main, and then obviously a little bit. Well, me and Jimbo have gone similar on the main, but yeah, but we're still loving it, still going for it.
Yep. So we were discussing, prior to, starting this blog tonight, kind of what got us into the UFC and what we do now. If any of any of our mates were, saying, Big Dawg, KDiggy, Jimbo Slice, I'm fancying a dabble on UFC. What fight would you show them? What fighters would you show them? So I'll come to you, Jimbo Slice. If one of your mates wanted to watch the UFC, what would be the fight that you would show them to get them into it?
Now that I was actually thinking about this. Now, one of our friends, Big Dawg, Big Bewley, was actually asking me about how to get in some fights to get into the UFC, and I was like, right, okay, let's pick a smorgasbord of a few. The instant one I showed him was Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. That great bit of a slobber knocker. And then I also showed him, just for the showing how quick the fight can end on the ground, was I showed Ryan Hall versus BJ Penn. I also sent him to watch Pat Barry, Czech Congo, but my main one that I haven't shown him yet, and I think I should.
Just pick all the fucking fights, man. You know what I mean? Just pick all of them. I said one fight.
Jim Miller versus Joe Lozon. That's the one that I'd pick. If I had to only pick one, because I think it's got it all. It's got heart, it's got blood, it's got grit, it's got violence. And I think Joe Lozon versus Jim Miller won. Fight of the year. Was it 2012? Was it 2013?
2012. 2012, right at the end of 2012.
I think it's an absolute banger of a fight. And I think the first one, especially, it's the fight. It's my favourite fight of all time. And it's the fight that I will show anyone.
It's a good pick. It's a great fight, to be fair. The one for me, you mentioned it when you mentioned a lot of, classic fights, to be fair. Just stealing everyone's thunder. Czech Congo Pat Barry, it's a classic. It's an absolute classic. The way that that fight, the tables turn in that fight, it's beautiful. I've lost count of how many times I've seen it, and every time I watch it, it still catches me off guard. To be quite honest with you, I think it is beautiful as the fight goes. If I was to pick another one, because you had said that one, I'd probably go old school. I'd go OG. One of the the classic fights that's talked about in ones that got people into the sport and captivated the world of the UFC. It's got to be Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner, Ultimate Fighter finale. Just 3 rounds of 2 men laying it all on the line, putting the heart and soul into every movement and fighting for that contract. It's a beautiful fight, and it's one that, again, I've seen a number of times, and it just tells a story, especially when you've seen the full series of the Ultimate Fighter, and and you understand what the victory means for both men. It's simply beautiful. KDiggy.
So I'm going to have to come here with my casual pick as the casual man in the podcast.
Let me guess. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz at UFC 202.
No, none of that McGregor stuff. But so my fight here is recent. So when I'm showing someone, I'm thinking, right, I want to show someone who's a couple people who are still in the UFC, still doing the thing. It's a big grudge match. You show them the build up before the fight, what was said, and there's clearly 2 sides to the coin. You either love one, you either hate one or love one, and then the other one's just there. The fight lasted 4 rounds. With these 2, they are wrestlers, but it was a really, really good striking fight. And with my favorite fighter in the UFC, what's the fight, boys?
It's going to be Tyron Woodley against Colby Covington.
Whoa, it's not Tyron, not Tyron Woodley. No, it's Usman and Colby.
Kamaru Usman.
It went for 5 rounds. Was
it 5 rounds? Oh, apologies. I knew it was 4 or 5.
Just look how casual this geezer is. Can't even remember. He's telling a fight for newcomers to watch, and you don't even know how long it'll last for.
Slip up on.
To be fair,
apologies.
It's a great fight, though. It's a fantastic fight.
We had a broken jaw. We had
last fight.
It was an incredible fight, which I really enjoy coming back to. I don't really go back and watch fights as much as you guys do. I'm more of a highlights casual boy than a full watch. But I do go back and watch the Colby and Usman fight just for my own pleasure. Really, I do enjoy that fight. I think it was so close, going 2-2 into the final round, and Usman just shows how much of a fantastic champion he is, and that's the day that my mind changed on him, and think he could be around for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's a great pick, and if we're talking about recent fights as well, one that comes to mind, for not just because it's a great fight, but to show the diversity that the sport has these days. It'd be Zhang Weili against Ioana Jędrzejczyk from earlier on this year. Just 5 rounds of pure violence, just captivating to watch. And I remember watching that when the fight happened, and just being blown away by the performance of both ladies. So that's one that I'd definitely consider showing to a newcomer as well. And
I've thought of another fairly recent one as well. If I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you'd finished.
Oh no, I'd finished anyway. I'd finished.
I'm very sorry. Would be either one of the two Whittaker versus Romero fights. Either one, because I think that's got all of it. And I think
you've got to show back to back,
where you don't know who's won the second one, especially until the hands have been raised. I just think they're excellent fights to watch. And I think you're right. You could watch them back to back and just give the entire story to people.
Rodriguez and the Korean Zombie as well with that last second.
Great fight.
Obviously, we are blessed.
There's so many classics that you could talk about. When you consider the fighters that got you into the sport. For me, when I was a young lad, I was a big WWE fan, and Lesnar was my boy, still is my boy. Big up Brock Lesnar. He got me into watching the UFC, and if it weren't for him, probably wouldn't be watching it now. But if you were to show any fighter to a new fan to get them into the sport, who would you go for? Jimbo.
Just one.
Just one.
Just one. If I had to pick any fighter, and I think the man who does this perfectly is Tony Ferguson. If you watched his winning streak, in that winning streak, he does everything. He does weird elbows. He does Imanari rolls. He submits people. He knocks people out. He, as a fighter, includes all of the best bits of MMA. He does wars. He does dominance. He takes a beating. Yes, especially in his latest one. Him as a fighter, you can watch his UFC career, and you've got everything that people love about sport in it.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a fair pick, but I think the person that I'd go for is one of my favourite fighters now, just purely on the longevity of the career, the amount of fights they've had in the various divisions. I'd go for the Reem, Alistair Overeem. You've got a lot to work with. You've got Horsemeat, Ubereem, you've got him as a light heavyweight, you've got him in Pride, Dream, Strikeforce, and now the UFC. You've got a lot. You've got a storied career to get through with him there. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, and he really is a fighter that you can get behind. And at the end of the day, is the uncrowned UFC heavyweight champion because Stipe clearly tapped when they fought. I think he'd be a good fighter for anyone to get into the sport. And just as we're closing, this episode of the blog for the one listener that still views it, KDiggy, would you pick? Big up Chris Davis.
Yeah, big up our boy. I think it's one. If you could just put a pin in his career, what would it be? 4 years ago, the one we discussed earlier today, I'd say Anderson Silva. If you can stop the career after the second loss. Well, no, don't include that. We don't need that second loss to Weidman. Let's just get the loss to Weidman, and then he hangs up his boots, and nothing else happened after that.
His boots.
It's getting late, isn't it?
Part-time footballer on side.
Casual football fan as well. I wish he drops his gloves in the octagon then, and don't watch anything past there. Just go back and enjoy.
I'd go one further and stop after Stephan Bonner. You don't need the Weidman loss. Yeah, just end on that.
I love the Weidman loss. I love that victory. It's the man who kills the giant. It's the man who
don't need it. If you want that ride off into the sunset, you stop at the Bonner fight. Beautiful finish, hometown, first round. That's why you call it there. Because if you've got one Weidman loss, you've got to have the other. You can't have them both, and do you really want the heartbreak of seeing him snap his leg again?
No, you don't want that. But Anderson Silva's my pick there, I think. But everyone, I think it's a good conversation to have. And if we do have any, so imagine we've got people who watching this who've never watched the UFC. That'd be a bit random. But you never know. Go and watch these fights.
Yeah, and Chris Davis, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you. Let us know which fight would you pick, and
tell us in the comments.
Tell us in the comments below.
Yeah, and you're our first subscriber.
Yeah. Subscribe for a shout out. But I have nothing further to add here. I'm tired and I'm probably going to go to bed as it's been a very long day. But we'll call it a day there, gentlemen. All the best, and we'll reconvene next week when we've got a bit more to talk about.
Look forward to it. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.